Nadia, can you hear me? Yep, yes, good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. We'll be starting in a few minutes, so feel free to you can turn your camera off, and then we'll I'm sure we'll be with you shortly. Thank you.
And just a reminder, everybody, if you could use the mics at your desk today and make sure you have the speakers off on your Teams so we don't get feedback.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Andrea Swindon has said to us a little while ago, if you can make sure that when you do speak, that you use the mic that is in front of you, the one with the red light on it, and maybe even raise your hand too to get the attention of the chair at that point. And if you are on Teams, and we hope you would be, if you could just mute your mic on that, and that would make things a lot easier. So welcome to the Policy Committee for this day. December the 13th, 2022. Again, you can just make sure that on Teams, the microphone is off. Also, just we're starting off as usual. Remind everyone too that this meeting is being recorded for future generations. Don't have an echo now, so that's good. Thank you very much. So welcome to the inaugural policy meeting on Tuesday, December the 13th, 2022, the Feast of St. Lucy, as we heard earlier today. Could I kindly request the land acknowledgement now be played?
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis,
from the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lake
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the four directions:
lands, waters, plants,
animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God.
We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation,
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Thank you. As we begin prayer today, and again, today is the feast of St. Lucy, I would also ask that you keep in your hearts the repose of the soul of Superintendent at Wellington Catholic, Dan Pace, who was appointed as the superintendent 3 months ago and passed away on the weekend. And he leaves a family, and he leaves a hole in the heart of that school board and the board that he came from, which was Brant Halton, Norfolk Catholic. So please hold him in our prayers. So join me in the sign of our faith. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. During Advent, we are called to seek the light of Christ, even in the midst of darkness. The prophets assure us that the darkness will not overcome us. They call us to watch for light. We are called to wait, to hope, to trust in God. As we make this Advent journey in faith, we invite God's light to dispel the darkness. We ask for the grace to let go of any burdens that we may carry in our hearts as we search for the light. We ask for the gift of attentiveness that we may truly see God's loving presence within and among us. May our faith be renewed so that we may be the light for others. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Item number 2, the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a mover to approve? Trustee Duarte. Trustee Duarte.
I'll second it.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Trustee Murphy, I think. Trustee Murphy. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. Declarations of conflict of interest is item number 3. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare this evening? Thank you. Delegations. There are no delegations this evening. Item 5 is the approval of the minutes, and that was from November the 8th, 2022, and they are part of the package. I'd ask you, are there any errors, additions, or deletions to the minutes of the November 8th, 2022 policy meeting? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2022 policy committee meeting? I'd ask you to raise your hand. Okay. Trustee Agnew, that's our mover. Can I have a seconder? Sorry, Trustee Carabell, I've got my Brian Mulroney glasses going here. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. First action item we have is the election of the chair of the policy committee from this date onward to December 2023. As this is our first policy committee meeting after the inaugural board meeting, we require a trustee to assume the position of chair of the policy meeting. Should a vote by ballot become necessary this evening, Superintendent Bakaich and myself will conduct the election. She will act as scrutineer while I tabulate the ballots. Trustees present at the meeting by electronic means, I believe we have Trustee Kelly, and who choose to vote may, at the time votes are being cast their vote by means of a private telephone conversation or by email with the scrutineer. I think we're going to text who shall make the vote on a paper ballot in the same form and manner as though the ballots had been marked in person by the voter. Sounds familiar, I'm sure, from 2 months ago. The ballots shall then be included with other ballots to be counted. The ballots cast electronically in this matter are subject to the same obligations of confidentiality on part of the scrutineer as those cast by voters physically at this meeting. A nomination motion for the position of Chair of the Policy Committee must be duly moved and seconded and received by the Secretary of the Board. I will now ask for nominations to come forward. Trustee Duarte.
Mr. Chair, I move to nominate Trustee Ohan Chanara for the position of Chair.
So I need a mover for Trustee O'Hearn Chernada to be nominated. That's you, Ms. Trustee Duarte. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Of that? Trustee Powell. Does Trustee O'Hearn Chernada accept the nomination for the position of Chair of the Policy Committee?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearn Chernada. Are there any other nominations? Are there any more nominations to come forward before closing the nominations? Finally, are there any other nominations to come forward? Last call for nominations, the Policy Chair Committee. Seeing no further nominations, may I request a mover and a seconder to close the nominations for the position of Chair of the Policy Committee. Need someone to move that? Trustee Agnew?
Second.
Trustee Duarte? Seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? I believe regardless of vote, we still have the opportunity to talk. Is that it or no? It's just for the vote. Good. Okay. I can give Trustee O'Hearn Chernada the opportunity to say a few words if you'd like.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to thank to my fellow trustees in the room. I just really humbly accept this position, and I will, the only thing I can promise is I'll do the very best I can. Will I make mistakes? Probably, so forgive me now, but I'll continue to get better and better. So thank you very much.
So Trustee O'Hearn Chernada, it will now be chair in the period of December the 13th, right now, in the next minute, to the first board meeting, which can't come fast enough, in December 2023. I invite Madam Chair to come take their position to preside over the rest of this meeting.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So we'll continue. The next item on our agenda is item 6.2, which is the governance policy governance by Director Klein. Trustees, can I have someone please move that the policy committee recommends that policy governance of policy be forwarded along with the amendments to the December 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval. May I have a mover? I can second it. Okay, so Trustee Duarte, Trustee Agnew, thank you very much. I believe now, Director Klein, you will have the floor to speak to this policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The policy governance, this governance of policy was last reviewed in January of 2019, and it's been reviewed as part of our regular policy cycle. If you will notice, there are minor housekeeping changes to it, and to make it in sync with other policies that have been revised through the last couple of years, and to clarify language throughout. And it is attached for your review, which I know you've already done. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Director Klein. Trustees, I will now open the floor to any questions. Okay, looks like we have a question from someone online there. See who that is. Trustee Carabella. Thank you. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have a few things, but I'll just start with right at the front of the policy. So I see that under principles, the HCDSB, but it's erasing board and putting HCDSB. I just like some clarity on that, because when I read that, I see that it says that, so I'm thinking, okay, the whole Halton Catholic District School Board provides direction to staff through the establishment of policy, or is it the Board of Trustees that provides direction to staff through the establishment of policy?
Thank you. To you, Director Klein.
Yeah, I think the thought within that was just to make it consistent with other policies, but I'm not sure if Superintendent Bakaich has any thoughts on that in terms of the array of other policies that we've had over the years and within this board. Within that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Carabella, in the purpose, it's establishing the framework for the process for developing and implementing and amending policies. So this is the process specific to new policies, review of policies, etc., and to ensure that it's consistent with the Halton Catholic District School Board's efforts in achieving specifically the mission, vision, and governing values. So it's the at sort of the general purpose of policy and procedure and the process there around it. I know what you're referring to when it's referring to Halton Catholic District School Board. That's when we put HCDSB in brackets. When it's referring to the Board of Trustees, it's left as the board.
Trustee Carabella, do you have a follow-up or clarifying question?
I'm happy with that answer, but I have other points, but others people can go ahead.
Trustee Carabella, I don't think we have anyone else in the queue, so go ahead.
Thank you. So on page 2, bullet 5, under the requirements, just to clarify there about when an individual trustee may give notice of an amendment to the HCDSB procedural bylaws. So that would, I wondered if we should say give notice at a board meeting to clarify where we can give notice, or is it at the policy meeting we give notice?
For you, to Director Klein.
Well, I get some feedback from Superintendent Bakaich, but I would assume that they would be either or. But it has to be within the context of one of the meetings. Superintendent Bakaich, would you agree with that?
Thank you, Director Klein, and through you, Madam Chair. So in this bullet, Trustee Carabella, it's referring to amendments to the HCDSB procedure bylaws. And then the notice will be referred to the Policy Committee for study and report. So an amendment proposed to the bylaws.
Right.
So the trustee can give notice to an amendment to the bylaws, and then it's referred back to policy for study and report.
So that would be that the person would be giving notice at, oh, I'm thinking, you know what, when I read that, I'm thinking giving notice of motion. So it would be a notice of motion at the board meeting saying that you want to make an amendment to the governance policy or procedural bylaws.
So this is to clarify if you want to make an amendment to the HCDSB procedural bylaws. So
Right.
to the bylaws themselves, not a notice of motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. I will move on. We have, oh, hey, Atul. Atul, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair, and I don't want to contradict what the superintendent said. The way, but when I read 14.2, in the procedural bylaw, an individual trustee may give written notice of motion to amend the bylaw. Such notice will automatically be referred to the policy committee for study and report back to the board. So to be consistent with notice of motion, that would be the written notice of motion that would be required to be given to the board, and then it would be automatically referred to the policy committee. But it would be a written notice of motion of the amendment that the trustee wishes to make.
Excuse me if I could, through you, Madam Chair, but that would be through the board meeting. So it is, as you said, it would be covered within that board meeting.
Okay, and to clarify through you, Madam Chair, so it's nothing to vote on, it's just to give a notice at that point. I don't know why I'm confused on that.
I'm seeing a nod. Oh, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. I'm seeing an agreement with our parliamentarian, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Carabella, we can move on. Is there anyone else? I don't see anyone else with their hand up. Just housekeeping, when you do put your hand up, please lower your hand. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Carabella, did you have your hand up again? Oh, no problem. Okay.
So may I speak?
You may. I see no one else in the queue, so please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So trustee, so at here it says all policies new. Well, it talks about policies being started and brought to the board by the policy committee of the Board of Trustees. Well, I thought that there could be a bullet that says that trustees themselves can propose new policies by first bringing it forward as a discussion item to a policy meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. To Director Klein.
Through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Carabella, can you just, is it a specific bullet we're referencing?
No, it's something that's not, I noticed that it's not in the policy where it talks about how we bring forward motion policies, but it doesn't speak about trustees bringing forward policies. So I thought that we have had experience where trustees have brought forward policies, not just coming from the senior staff. It was the correspondence policy and the French programming, optional French programming policy. So I thought that that could be included as in the governance policy, that a way for trustees to know that they can also bring forward policies. And the way we have done it is by bringing it as a discussion item to the policy meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Back over to Director Klein.
And I'll bounce that over to Superintendent Bakaich because she has that full sense of the policy committee's work. So go ahead.
Thank you, Director Klein, and through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Carabella, you're correct. That is the process. So trustees or staff can bring forward a policy either that is established or in creating a new policy, and that is the process. And you're right, it does come through as a discussion item first, and I believe you're referencing to what we've worked through in the past. So I think it's already captured in the policy itself. Yeah.
Perfect. I do see another hand up. Trustee Duarte?
Madam Chair, under requirements, third bullet, it says that the Director of Education or designate shall recommend to the Board of Trustees through policy committee the policies to be developed and reviewed. So the director would bring it either through a board information item or through staff. So the third bullet talks to that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director Klein, do you have a comment on that or? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no more, I don't see anyone's hands up. Oh. Marvin, Trustee Duarte, does your hand go back up again? Are you guys playing with me? Okay, so, Trustee Caravella.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Last one. So this is on page 2 of 3, under requirements, the third bullet from the bottom, the last sentence. It says, in consultation with the Director of Education, the policy committee or an individual trustee can request a legal opinion regarding a policy. So I wanted to add, I guess, an amendment or add or clarify first that we can ask for a legal opinion regarding a policy without a vote. This implies that it can be achieved without a vote. But in the past, we've had when a trustee has suggested something be legally vetted, we've had a vote, and some have passed and some have not passed. So I think that's an important part to clarify.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Caravella. Over to Director Klein.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you. And I will bounce that back to Superintendent Bakaich in a moment, but I would say I'm noting the language in this is in consultation with the director, the policy can request. So I think that to me, that suggests that there's a conversation with regard to that. Superintendent Bakaich, is there, in terms of the roots of this over the years?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. To my knowledge, Trustee Carabella, the process has been that when there is a request from a trustee in consultation with the Director of Education, and it can take place at the policy committee itself typically. What has been the practice is it's gone to a vote. It's been part of discussion and then gone to a vote, whether to proceed with a legal opinion. And in some cases, Trustee Carabella, as you know, the policies are founded on legislation, and so they are rooted in legal opinion because they come through to us either through the Ministry of Education or some other legal body. And often that's why the policies are structured the way that they are. They're already informed by legal opinion.
Thank you, Superintendent Bakaich. Trustee Caravella?
Do you think that needs to be worded in there? Because we just basically had that happen too at the minutes of our November 8th policy committee meeting. We had a vote on that. Anyone else have an opinion on that, if that should be clarified?
Thank you, Trustee Caravella. I see Trustee Duarte.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand up. I think that was the bylaw you're talking about, the bylaw policy, the procedural bylaw. So that would need legal opinion, which we sought. That was a major change. So I think in this particular case, what is implied is have the conversation with the director, and others, it comes too bureaucratic all the time. So.
Thank you. I see Trustee Agnew has her hand up.
I can maybe try to speak to the matter as well a little bit for clarification, if that's helpful. So you're right, Trustee Carabella, we have had that. To my recollection, I think when we've had that has been when it's been part of the motion. So I've seen before where we've brought something forward and we've made an amendment to whatever that motion might be, or whatever that piece was, to seek legal opinion. So the way that I'm sort of looking at this is in the event that a trustee is looking for a legal opinion on a matter that's specific, they would follow the process as outlined here to go through and ask for that legal opinion. So I think we've just been in circumstances where in the course of the conversation, it's gone to, well, do we need to have a legal opinion? There's a conversation that ensues and it becomes part of the amendment, or becomes part of the motion as an amendment. So that could be why we've seen it that way. The way I read this, and I think that would still continue if it becomes part of a motion. But the way that I look at this is in the event that a trustee, an individual trustee, would like to go and seek out a legal opinion, that they would follow this process and go through the director in consultation with the director. That's the way that I see it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Agnew. Okay, seeing, I don't see any other questions. I do see a hand up, but I think that hand just needs to be brought down again. Okay, I think we're going to take it to a vote. We'll take it to a recorded vote right now. So I will start. Student Trustee Kuzma.
In favor?
Student Trustee Chua.
In favor.
In favor. Thank you. Student Trustee Bowie, who's on the line there. Student Trustee Bowie? Okay, I'll go back. Trustee Saunders, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Powell, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Murphy, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Kennedy?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly, online?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Thank you. And Trustee O'Hearn Charnota is in favor. Trustee Bowie? Trustee Bowie? That's okay. I'll leave it because it doesn't affect the vote. It's unanimous. So it's unanimous. This policy passes and will be brought to the board meeting, forwarded to the next regular board meeting on December 20th, 2022. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving along, we're on 6.3, policy I-26, student trustees on the Halton Catholic District School Board. If trustees, can I have someone please move that the policy committee recommends that policy I-26, student trustees on the Halton Catholic District School Board, be forwarded along with amendments to the December 20th, 2022 regular school board meeting for an approval. May I have a mover? Trustee Duarte?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Trustee Agnew. Thank you. I believe Superintendent Del Sordo, it is your time to provide commentary on I-26 policy.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, I'll step in front of that for a moment. So we're going to do a little bit of a tag team. I'll start just by saying that we do have a guest here with us today. We have Nadia Tomachenko, who is a friend of the board and someone who has assisted boards out over the years in terms of her high knowledge and mastery of the Ed Act and all things legal around schools and school systems. So we will be asking her just to make a few comments in a moment. In terms of the background, this is a policy that we probably wouldn't have had in front of you at this point. It would have been on the agenda for June, I think, in terms of the cycle. But you do know that on occasion, because of a variety of needs, the times themselves sometimes call upon us to move things forward. So policies are linked to procedures. Procedures and policies are often rooted in regulations and laws, and that is no less the case with this. So for instance, there's regulations in the Ed Act that specify in law how elections are to come to pass with regard to student trustees. Because of that, we have some timelines that start really in January in terms of that motion going forward in order to abide by those regulations. Because of that, that means we have to look at this policy if we were to shift it and change it and modify it and evolve it. Why are we doing that? Because many of you, I think, would understand, perhaps not, there's a lot going on in the world, but there was a recent court ruling that was the result of a case involving one of our sister boards, York Catholic, and that has an impact and an implication for this policy. So Superintendent Del Sordo will speak to this in terms of the details of the work that's been done. And I would first off start off by saying that he, among many, helped lead the review of this to ensure that we are creating and updating and revising a policy in light of that. And I do want to thank him and thank others who've done that, along with everybody else who does a lot of work on our policies. However, this was not one that I think he or anybody else thought would be coming down the pike, you know, a week or two before the Christmas season. So that, I think that should be recognized. It is important that Catholic schools recognize that we are we have been here for well over 150 years in Ontario, and that we recognize sometimes, if you're as old as me, that you know that there's been significant changes in Catholic schools over our lifetime. The high school that I went to and paid money to in order to have the same rights as other students that I went to the same hometown with, but they were in the public system, that changed. Obviously 2 years after I left, and didn't have to pay the money anymore. But that was a sign of the times and a change, and it reflected a growing and evolving Ontario. The Ontario then was a lot different than it is now. And I would say the Ontario now is a lot more diverse and wonderful and than it was maybe back then as well. The good old days weren't always that exactly. So I think that should be seen as a very important context. And Catholic schools are not afraid of that. Catholic schools engage with the world and they move through the world. So I think that's important to consider as well. And we're not isolated from jurisprudence, and I will maybe clumsily hand that over to Nadia right now to give us a sense of the case itself and its implications on Waterloo Catholic, or sorry, on Halton Catholic and Waterloo Catholic, all Catholic school boards around the province. Depending on incidentally, some of you do keep track of other boards, depending on what their policy says, depending on what their procedure is, because some school boards have 2-year terms for students, then the impetus and the timeline is might be different. So I think you should recognize that the context is always everything in life, and no doubt it is in law as well, particularly when it regards the Ed Act. So I'll turn it over to Nadia, and thank you and welcome, Nadia. Just need to put your mic on.
Yeah, I think you're on mute, Nadia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. The decision that the director has.
Madam Chair, we're just going to need to turn off the boardroom live. We're getting feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. I'm not getting feedback anymore. Hopefully you're not as well. The decision that the director was referencing in his introduction was with respect to the York Catholic District School Board. They had a policy that required student trustees to be Catholic, and that was part of their policy. That policy was challenged by a student and eventually went to the divisional court. And the divisional court, which is a panel of 3 judges that have expertise in administrative law. So they sit to review statutory powers of decision, which would include, as an example, a policy with respect to student trustees. So student trustees are required to be part of the board's process, and there's a regulation and a section in the Education Act with which both speak to the requirement for school boards to have student trustees. The student in question was not Roman Catholic. She was Orthodox Christian and challenged the requirement to be Roman Catholic in the board's policy. And the court agreed with her that the board did not have the authority to require the student trustees to be Catholic. On behalf of the school board, we argued that student trustees were part of governance of the school board, and therefore were the requirement that they be Catholic was protected pursuant to Section 93 of the Constitution. The court disagreed with us. The court found that student trustees are not part of governance because they are not voting members of the board, that instead they are representative appointments from students and are there to provide representations of student voice, but are not decision makers and are therefore not part of governance. And as such, the board could not rely on Section 93 of the Constitution to override the charter protection that all of us have with respect to religion. So that is, in a nutshell, the basis of the decision of the court. What's important for Catholic school boards is that those Catholic school boards that have in their policies or did have in their policies a qualification that student trustees must be Catholic are no longer, that's no longer consistent with the law now that the divisional court has decided that that is a breach of charter rights for students who wish to seek to be student trustees. And so even though that decision applied strictly to the York Catholic District School Board, it was the only decision, it's the first decision that was looking at the issue of whether or not requiring student trustees to be Catholic was a violation of the charter. And because the court has now ruled through precedent and when looking at existing policies, school boards need to consider changing their policies to be consistent with what is now the interpretation of the regulation and the provision in the Education Act. So the court essentially said that the regulation is all that school boards can articulate in terms of qualifications. You can create a process, and as school boards want to, they can suggest that applications and the experience of student trustees include certain factors, but you cannot require that a student be Catholic. And I would also argue that requiring them to have some form of endorsement or some form of approval that suggests that Catholic students will be preferred over other students would also be inconsistent with the decision of the court. So that's sort of the decision in a nutshell. I'm happy to take questions. It was a relatively complicated argument that was made by both counsel, although the decision was fairly simple in that they hung their analysis based on the fact that student trustees are not members of the board.
Thank you, Director Klein. I'm just wondering if it's the will of the policy committee, do we want to just start asking questions about the actual legal case first and then get into the policy? That would probably make more sense. Okay. Agreed? Anyone disagree with me? Okay, so we have Vice Chair Agnew. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So just a question with respect to the the legal findings. Do we know if at this point there has been an appeal that has been put forward on this decision?
My understanding is that the board is not going to be seeking to appeal the decision. And OCSTA, although they weren't an intervener, they were consulted throughout the process. My understanding is that there has been no interest in supporting an appeal either. So as far as I know, the decision remains, and there is not, as far as I know, any application to seek leave to appeal. There's not an automatic right of appeal. It's a two-step process to have the Court of Appeal review a decision of the divisional court, and the board would have to basically ask permission of the court to be able to appeal it to the court. But my understanding is that they're not going to proceed with that.
Jenko, Vice Chair, any follow-up?
No follow-up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I see Trustee Saunders. You have your hand up. Please feel free.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and I've read through the case, there doesn't seem to be anything in there where there's an obligation of the student trustee to actually even support the Catholic faith. Is that right? Is it like, and I know it would be an extreme example, but could somebody be a student trustee and actually sort of use that as a platform to kind of attack the Catholic faith? Is that or would that fall into like our code of conduct? Is there some protection?
Yeah, so a student doesn't have to declare support for Catholic education. I think to some degree the court was relying on the student body to make decisions about whether or not a student trustee would be appropriate and whether or not they would be supportive of Catholic education. The hope would be certainly that if they're representing fellow students, that they would be supportive of the mission and vision of the Catholic School Board, where they're going to be student trustees, but they don't actually have to declare anything or promise to do so. Their behavior certainly would be subject to the code of conduct, just as any trustee's behavior is subject to the code of conduct. And for that matter, any individual who's participating in Catholic education has to comply with the Catholic Code of Conduct as well.
Thank you. Trustee Saunders, do you have a follow-up? Thank you. Okay, next in line, we have Trustee Carabella and Student Trustee. Trustee Carabella?
Thank you. Through Madam Chair and through Mrs. Timachenko. If I understood you correctly, were you saying at the end are you saying that Catholic students can't promote themselves as Catholic, like that?
No, certainly Catholic students can promote themselves as Catholic. I believe that the question was whether or not a student trustee who is not in favor of Catholic education would be able to express that view, and there's nothing that would prevent them from doing so. But certainly the decision doesn't prevent Catholic students from expressing their support for Catholic education, or for anybody else to support Catholic education for that matter. It just it applies to whether or not you could limit participation on the basis that somebody is not either declaring or providing some kind of oath to support Catholic education.
Thank you. Trustee Carabella, clarification or follow-up?
I just had another question regarding the appeal process. Is there a time limit for that? Like, are you saying that because York Catholic didn't do an appeal and Oxta didn't do appeal, that is there ever a time when you no longer can make an appeal?
Yes, so there is a time frame set out in the rules of procedure for bringing an appeal. And that timeline has passed. So it would only be with leave of the court that the York Catholic District School Board could appeal the decision. And just to clarify, OCSTA was not a party. They did not intervene. So they would not be able to seek leave to appeal the decision. It's really the board that holds that authority to do so. And the timeline has passed. So if they were to seek leave to appeal now that the timeline has passed, they would actually need permission of the court to do that as well. So they would need to ask for the opportunity to ask for the opportunity, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Machenko. So I'm going to move on. Student trustee Kuzma, you're next in line.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I just had some points to kind of help understand the election process of a student trustee, as to keep the sort of knowledge of Catholic education and issues in Catholic education, in addition to the speech which must be said during elections. We can add a question where we asked all candidates, do you know what issues in Catholic education are, and that type of things, just to make sure that people aren't going to use the platform for hate speech, and they do have a base knowledge in Catholic education. And we could even make this, I'm not sure, but we could maybe make this part of the application package where they have to submit an answer to those questions. And we haven't decided on anything yet, but if we want to keep this sort of thing in to make sure that student trustees do have a base knowledge of Catholic education, we can do things like this, just to keep that in our minds.
Thank you, student trustee Kuzma. Okay, do you have a follow-up or clarification? No, awesome. Okay, so trustee Kelly, you're next in line.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Hi there, Ms. Timochenko. I was a part of the court case. I don't know if you recall me. I was previously a student trustee at Halton Catholic. I am now a board trustee, and I did have a question. I do know you mentioned that it wasn't required of all boards across Ontario. I was just wondering if that's, so this specific hearing only requires York Catholic to change their policy, not all of Ontario Catholic school boards?
Sorry, I found it very difficult to hear the question. If I could just repeat it back. Were you asking me to clarify whether the decision applies to all Catholic school boards or whether it simply applies to York Catholic?
Yes, that was my question.
So the decision has precedential value for other Catholic school boards, but the decision applies specifically to the policy of the York Catholic District School Board. I think that when we're looking at case law and how it's applicable, we are always considering whether or not a policy is consistent with existing law and whether it could be challenged under existing law. And so in terms of making recommendations for changes to policies, we always consider whether or not there is a decision that would suggest that the policy is not consistent with existing law. Even if the decision doesn't specifically apply. So I guess that would be my answer. So, I would not be recommending policies that are inconsistent with current law, and the decision in the York Catholic case is an interpretation of the law, and it is authority in that respect.
Thank you so much.
Clarification required? Nope. Okay, awesome. Trustee Carabella, your hand is up. Do you have another question? No? Okay. Okay, so I think unless anyone has any other legal questions, I see Trustee Duarte. I was going to move over to the policy.
It's not a legal question.
Okay. So I think what we'll do through you, Director Klein, if we could move into the policy, and then maybe I'll direct it to you over to Superintendent De Sorda to speak to the policy in front of us today.
Madam Chair, the purpose of this policy is to provide the direct representation of the interests of students on the board in accordance with the provisions of the Education Act, Ontario Regulation 07, Section 7, and any guidelines issued by the Minister of Education under paragraph 3.5 of subsection 8(1) of the Education Act. Policy I-26, Student Trustees on the Halton Catholic District School Board Update,
is reflective of the ruling from the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice that allows non-Catholic students attending Catholic schools to apply for a student trustee position. This includes the removal of restrictions on this policy that prevented non-Catholic students from being potential student trustee candidates so that we can align with the ruling. Also, there are minor housekeeping changes that have been made throughout the policy. Revised policy I-26 student trustees on the Halton Catholic District School Board is attached for review and consideration by the policy committee.
Thank you so much, Superintendent DeSordo. So I'm going to open the floor to discussions or questions. So we have a lineup. So first I have Chair Duarte.
Point of order.
Oh, yes, Trustee Carabello.
Thank you. Point of order is that I think the policy needs to be moved and seconded before we having discussion on it.
We did.
It was moved?
Yes, Duarte and Agnew were the
Okay,
mover and the
thank you.
seconder. Yeah, we
Sorry.
just got distracted because of the legal portion, yes, but thank you, thank you. Okay, so we have a lineup to Chair Duarte, Vice Chair Agnew, and Student Trustee Chua. So Trustee Duarte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to propose 3 changes to this policy. The first change I would like to propose is directly pertaining to the Education Act. Section 55 of the Education Act, subsection para 5, talks about a student trustee who is not entitled to be present at a meeting that is closed to the public under clause 2072, and 2072 is says that where the security of the property of the board, disclosure of intimate personal or financial information, and it continues, that's presently there, the acquisition of or disposal of a school site, and decision in respect of negotiation and litigation affecting the board. So these 5 items do not permit student trustees to attend as per the Education Act. So the policy, I would like to suggest that that policy be changed. So that would be under page 3 or 4, the third bullet from the top. It talks about here in quotes, when the subject matter under consideration involves the disclosure of intimate personal. There's only one item from the Education Act which is quoted here. There are 4 more items under the Education Act which need to be in there. While this policy is being reviewed, I'd like to propose that we add all those 4 items, because anyway right now student trustees are not allowed for those items because the Education Act does not permit that. So it's section 53, para.
Trustee Duarte, I don't mean to, I'm wondering if it would be more fulsome if the changes that you're proposing, because they're fulsome, could we get it in writing and maybe up on the screen?
So
we could
yes,
all...
I've submitted it to Ms. Swindon. Ms. Swindon, could you just, so to clarify, yes, so the item which is in quotes, when the subject matter under consideration involves disclosure, that's only one item under the Education Act which is put there. There are 4 other items which need to be added there. So item B can be deleted because existing. Ms. Swindon, item B is existing, so we can delete that, but the other items need to be in there. So we'll retain that, Ms. Swindon, if you can retain the cancel item and delete the item B at the bottom.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Trustee Dort, through you, Madam Chair. I think the way you're structuring it is the same way we have in our bylaws. So maybe it is consistent to leave it in as a section B and take out.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. I am going to have to defer. Sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be rude. But to Parliamentarian Kapoor, there is some urgent information about
Sure.
what we're trying to do here. Parliamentarian Kapoor, can you please jump in?
Thank you. And while I remind you that I am not a lawyer, and you have one on in the call, if I could read 55(2) of the Education Act, it says that a student trustee is not entitled to be present at a meeting that is closed to the public under clause 207(2)(b). It specifies clause 207(2)(b), not A, C, D, or E. But as I said, I don't want to, I'm just reading the act to you. I don't want to interpret it, and you have a lawyer on the call.
Thank you, Parliamentarian Kapoor. If you would so indulge me, we'll go over to Ms. Timochenko. So for her opinion on this, as she's our legal expert around the room.
So through you, Madam Chair, there are actually two issues. So it should not be subsection 5 sub 5. It should be subsection, it's 55 sub 2 of the Act, and that is correct. It is only section 207 sub 2B, and that is because of the confidential nature of the information. So pursuant to the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, student trustees can't be held accountable in the same way. So that's why this section applies that way. So that's just a little bit of context why they're allowed to be in other closed meetings, but not meetings that address personal information that's sensitive.
Thank you for that opinion, Trustee Duarte. Sorry to interrupt, but we can move on. Yeah, thank you.
No. I think there's a correction there, subsection 5. I heard Ms. Timoshenko say.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to point of clarification. So are you going to are you amending what you're?
No, I'll have to withdraw that.
Okay, so Trustee Duarte, you're withdrawing that first change that you want in this policy. Okay, so everybody erase that. You didn't see that first change.
So
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Continue.
do I continue with the second one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so under requirements, after bullet number 3, Madam Chair, I given this para 2, it's up in a screen. After bullet 3. So number 2 to be added, the be active supporters of distinct, not that one, Ms. Swindon, the other one. Yes. So Madam Chair, what I have is on the screen. Be active supporters of the distinctive character, philosophy, and goals of Catholic education, respect the faith and traditions of the Catholic Church, and support the mission, vision, and values of the Halton Catholic District School Board. You can call this plagiarism. I've taken this bullet right from another school board's policy, which has been updated. And it's being implemented in another school board, and I will thank that school board later.
So just for clarification, this is an amendment to the policy and is an addition.
As an addition.
Additional bullet point.
Correct.
Thank you.
And
I can second that. Do you need a seconder?
No,
I think there's one more, Trustee Carabella, and I think we can try and do this as a package deal, as a friendly amendment, and then we can move and second it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And under requirements, after the last bullet, I have another paragraph, which is another plagiarism, but I'll thank that school board too. Student trustees sign an oath of office that states that they will undertake as their duty as a student trustee of the Halton Catholic District School Board to use their best efforts in all reasonable means to promote the continued protection of the denominational rights and privileges of Roman Catholics as recognized by the law and guaranteed by Section 93 of the Constitutional Act 1867, and of the continued provision of a fair share of education funding and of such other measures of the Board of Trustees from time to time deems necessary. Again, this wording is exactly as implemented by another school board and which has been implemented. So Madam Chair, these are my 2 changes.
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. So we started off with changes I'm just trying to get myself up to speed. So 3 changes. You rescinded the first change, right? Because we couldn't do that. So now you have 2 additions to the policy. And one is these 2 in highlights, correct?
Correct. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So in order to discuss this amended, I need a mover, someone to move it and someone to second it.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. Someone to second?
I'll second it. I think I moved it, right, Madam Chair? I moved it. You just need a second.
Okay, Trustee Murphy, do you mind if he moves it and you second it? Are you good with that? Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay, perfect. So now okay, settle down, group, settle down. Okay, so we have a mover. It's Trustee Duarte, seconded by Trustee Murphy. Now I'm going to open the floor to any questions. We already have a list, so I have Trustee Duarte, hand down. Okay. Vice Chair Agnew, you're next on the speakers list.
Any clarification, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we get to the question piece, are we looking to have this amendment done as just a friendly amendment?
If that's the will of the table. Anyone
But I
opposed?
just,
Oh,
so here comes, I'm just thinking it can. It can-
remember, I'm new, okay?
Right.
I'm new.
It might just be easier.
Okay, so there could be a quick way to get this done. So if no one opposes these two additions to the policy and it becomes a friendly amendment, then we just move on and we add it to the policy. If there is, and if someone has opposition to any of these 2 points, then we will have to go back to the regular process. Is there any objection? Going once? Going twice? So duly moved. These are added to the policy. Great, fantastic. Okay, now we're going back to the policy as amended. We have a mover and we have a seconder, so I think we're good with that. So now I'm going to open the floor to questions. So now I'm going to you, Vice Chair Agnew, because you're first on the list, and then Student Trustee Chua.
Thank you very much, and through you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question so much as I just wanted to make a really short comment. I will be supporting the amendments to this policy. First and foremost, I do believe, as was mentioned this evening, by not supporting our policy to allow for the consideration of non-student trustees would be in direct contravention of a legal decision. And I don't want to see our board be put in a precarious situation that opens us up to potential legal action. We would have to know that inevitably a decision not to support these amendments would cost the board financially via legal fees and possible HRTO awards to defend something we know the outcome already to be. Students attend our schools in the hopes of achieving their greatest successes in numerous ways. They are afforded incredible opportunities for learning, leadership, friendships, the future, and so much more. These opportunities should not be limited in any way, and certainly not because they are not Catholic. Our faith is ingrained in our school culture, school communities, and our curriculum. I truly do not believe that we are compromising any of our Catholic fiber in opening up these opportunities, and that we should feel very strongly that all students who put themselves forward in the hopes of being a student trustee in our board will put the mission, vision, and values of the HCDSB first, and that they will do their very best to promote the values that make our system the incredible system that it is, and that they will use this lens in their decision-making at our board table. I am steadfast in my belief that all students should be afforded equal opportunities and should not be discriminated against because of religion, disability, race, and all the other key human rights. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Agnew. Any clarification or follow? No, thank you. Okay, Student Trustee Chua, you are next on the speakers list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is also just a comment like Trustee Agnew's. I will say at the heart of it, amongst all the other legal action that we all hear as trustees and student trustees, to amplify the voices of all of our students, no matter their faith, their religion, or how they apply. As a student trustee, my role, Trustee Kuzma and Trustee Brady, our role is to amplify the students of all voices, yet as Catholic students, we are unable to recognize the biases and barriers that our non-Catholic students face on a day-to-day basis, as we are Catholic and the reason we are here today. And students are, in fact, our biggest stakeholders in our schools. They are the people who are actually affected by these policies. They are the people who are living the day-to-day life as students. They are the people that we should be serving for every single day. And currently, our non-Catholic students, as the policy before this passes, or if it does pass, our students are not able to achieve higher levels of leadership. And I will say, as a student trustee, this has been the greatest leadership position I've ever had in my life. And allowing non-Catholic students not being able to have that opportunity is discriminatory against them, to be blunt. And we hope that you all can make an informed decision using the informal data that we have all sent you on your emails. But our students are really advocating for this, and we advocate for the voices of our students and the equitable decisions that our students want to make and decisions that, will benefit our board. That's all I had to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Student Trustee Chua. Eloquent as always. Moving down to the next speaker list. So Trustee Carabella.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I would just like clarification on page 2 of 4, the top bullet, why we would take out that the Halton Catholic District School Board. I don't see the purpose of taking it out. It says a student trustee of the Halton Catholic District School Board is a model of servant leadership.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Director Klein? Or?
Sure, I'm going to go back, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, and it's a good question, Trustee Carabella, and I'm going to just ask, a lot of this is, again, a thread of continuity that goes through other policies, and I don't want to be the one to mess that up in terms of explanation, so I'm going to ask Superintendent Del Sordo.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Carabella, the removal of the Halton Catholic District School Board was only because it was redundant. As you read the sentence, it says a student trustee is a model of servant leadership for the Halton Catholic District School Board community. And so it's what we did was we included the board and we included the community at large to represent the board.
Thank you, Superintendent DeSorda. Trustee Carabella, follow-up or clarification?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd just like to ask, if you don't mind, I'd like to just clarify with Ms. Timochenko about the requirements of the Act. I want to make sure that we have it correct in our policy and that the wording is perfect. So if you wouldn't mind, Ms. Timochenko, we could bring it up to the, yeah, it's under requirements. It's right under requirements, section of the Act, first paragraph. There you go. Oh, oh.
So
Go ahead, Mr. Machenko. Sorry, I had my mic on.
So I believe it's 55 sub 2. I'm happy to confirm that with you. I don't have my act in front of me because I've got the screen open, but I believe it's 55 sub 2, and I'm happy to confirm that with the director.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I do see a few more hands up. Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to ask about the role of the chaplain in helping to be part of the process. I see that we don't have a letter of endorsement from the parish priest, but would the chaplain be involved in the selection process?
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Through Director Klein over to Superintendent Del Sordo, probably.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Madam Chair. The procedure for elections is that the school principal, along council, as well as the staff advisors, are the ones that start to work on the election process. So if the chaplain agrees to be an advisor, then yes, they would be part of it, but that would be up to the chaplain. We do have a chaplain involved working with all the senators because they chose to do so and really help work with the faith formation.
Thank you. Trustee Carabella, follow up.
Just what you said, and I'm just curious about the chaplain being involved with the Senate. Is that at every high school?
So the Senate represents every high school. So yes.
Thank you. Moving on, Vice Chair Agnew, you have your hand up.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So just while we're asking about some of those clarifications, I just wanted to ask Ms. Timochenko if the last piece that we had added as an amendment from Chair Duart, is that, I don't know if we can pull that up, but is that can we do that? Because I know you had commented about no further stipulations and we wanted to be careful about that. So I'm just wondering if you could just take a quick boo at that last piece that we added and just let us know if that's okay, in your opinion.
So I would caution about having the student trustees be required to sign that oath of office, as well as the, I believe there was another provision that was added as well. The actively support. I'd like to say two things. One is that I'm not sure what happens in the event that a student isn't actively supportive, and how and who evaluates that. So I'm just gonna suggest that if this is something that's evaluated by the student senate that's electing the student trustee, I think that's in one category. But if this is something that is an ongoing expectation while the student is a student trustee, I just put forward the question about how is this actually evaluated, and then what happens if somebody finds that the students are not actually doing this. Similarly, I just want to raise the point that if you have a student trustee who's elected by their student senate and then they refuse to sign the declaration, is that the expectation, or is there a process that will take place vis-a-vis that student's ongoing participation? I think, sorry, if I could just say one more thing. I think one of the things that is important to understand about the decision of the court is that student trustees were not considered to have the same requirements to be Catholic as elected members of the board. And therefore, that would also apply to what you can ask of them. So I recognize that elected Catholic trustees have to swear an oath, but it's an expectation that you are Catholic, and that is through legislation, and that's also supported through the Constitution. Essentially, the divisional court said all of those requirements that apply to elected Catholic trustees are not applicable to student trustees, because they are simply representatives of the student body and they are not decision makers. And so I think that when you're thinking about these two amendments, that's an important context. So is it possible for somebody who is an active participant in a different religion to sign this oath? And is it reasonable to have somebody who is not Catholic? And I'm also not sure about how that other provision is intended to be actioned. Is it reasonable for them to be required to demonstrate that?
Thank you. Vice Chair Agnew, follow-up clarification?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And that's sort of where my line of thinking was with respect to that last paragraph specifically. So, I think perhaps it's worthy of having a conversation about. I don't know if there would be a flavor around the table, given what we just heard from our legal representation, that we remove that paragraph from the policy. It doesn't sound like it's in line with the legal decision, and it could possibly be problematic.
Thank you, Vice Chair Agnew. I do have a speakers list. I have Trustee Saunders and Student Trustee Kuzma. Would you like to speak to the topic, Trustee Saunders?
Yeah, I still support this. I think it's sort of laying out the expectation of a student that they are, this is why they're at a Catholic school. This is why they're presumably joining the trustees to support this. And I just want to know, is there an oath now that the students have to take?
So that would be, is there an oath that they're taking right now, Director?
Through you, Madam Chair, I guess I just ask about student trustees or students?
Trustees.
Trustees.
Is there an oath now they have to take?
I don't think so.
No, I mean, I'm in support of this just because I think it makes it clear sort of what you're doing here and why you're here. So notwithstanding it, I mean, there may be some gray legal ground. I think it's worth putting in, and if it has to be tested, it has to be tested. But I think I think it makes it abundantly clear why they're here.
Thank you, Trustee Saunders. I'm just going to continue to move on because we're still in this conversation about this paragraph, I believe. Student Trustee Kuzma.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Looking at the paragraph, I think that the base of it, that we should sign an oath that ensures that we act accordingly in the boardroom. It makes sense to have some sort of oath, but I think that specifically the part that says to promote the rights and privileges of Roman Catholics does go against the court case. So if we were to remove that or reword the paragraph somehow, I think we could keep some semblance of it in, though I'm not sure specifically how to do that.
Trustee Kuzma, I'm going to continue to move on. We might get some value. So Trustee Kelly, you're next on the list.
And through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for mentioning that as Student Trustee Kuzma. And I do think that is something as well to consider, just because, as you mentioned, it could be something that goes against the court case. And something I want to bring up that Trustee Agnew also mentioned, that in the case where it does get challenged by a future student trustee or a future party, whatever it may be, we could have to go down a path that would cost the board a lot of money in terms of representing ourselves in court. So it could not be a smart decision fiscally, as well as making sure that these students feel that they are properly represented in the board without being forced to do something that would go against the ruling of the court case. Just my 2 cents. Thank you, and back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going down to Student Trustee Chua. Oh, you put, okay. Okay, so next on the list, Trustee Carabello, your hand's been up. Are you? You're playing with me, aren't you? No, I'm just kidding. It's okay. Trustee Saunders, you're next up.
Yeah, if this is challenged, there's no obligation to go to court. I mean, if a student is unhappy with this, it doesn't necessarily end up in court, and it doesn't necessarily end up as a legal challenge. So, you know, the concern that this could cost a lot of money, I don't think that's an issue that can be headed off before it gets that far. So, just FYI.
Thank you, Trustee Saunders. And just housekeeping through you, Madam Chair. And then I'm going to just delegate it to our actual legal opinion that's in the room as far as the challenging portion of this. Ms. Timochenko?
So there are 2 ways that somebody might choose to challenge it. There is the way that the process worked with York Catholic, which was a judicial review of the policy. The other way that somebody might choose to challenge the policy is through an application to the Human Rights Tribunal, because they feel that the existing language in the policy violates their freedom of religion and discriminates against their religious beliefs or other beliefs that they may argue are inconsistent. So there could be an application. It doesn't necessarily mean that there would be significant costs associated, but I wouldn't say that it couldn't be challenged. And then the board would need to make a decision regarding how they're going to respond to the challenge. And a student may, you know, choose not to settle with the board, in which case you're embroiled in something, whether you would like to be or not.
Thank you. Trustee Saunders, follow up or no? Okay, perfect. Vice Chair Agnew. You're next on the list.
So thank you very much to you, Madam Chair. So just hearing what we've heard and I agree, there's no automatics that that someone's going to take us to court or to the HRTO, but I'd rather mitigate that if possible based on the legal advice from our representation here. And there's always reputational damage as well. So when looking at this policy, I do think that, through some of the additions that have been made this evening, as well as some of the additions that staff has made, it's a very robust policy that speaks very clearly to the expectations of student trustees to uphold the mission, vision, and values of the HCDSB and the expectation that they do that through a Catholic lens. So I feel very confident in the wording that's been used. I'd like to suggest that I will make an amendment to remove this last paragraph. For all the reasons that I just stated.
Thank you, Vice Chair Agnew. I will just ask, we made the first ones as a friendly amendment. Can we remove this as a friendly amendment, or do we not? We don't have appetite for that. Okay.
No.
Perfect. No, that's fine. Okay, so I'll need a mover. So the amendment is removing that bullet point. Okay, I'll need someone to move that. Thank you. Do I have someone to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Moved by Vice Chair Agnew, seconded by Trustee Powell. Okay, so let's start. Student Trustee Kuzma. We're voting on the amendment.
In favor?
In favor? Okay.
Point of order, we're voting the amendment is to remove.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so let's move on. So Vice Chair Agnew?
In favor.
Chair Duarte?
Opposed.
Trustee Carabella?
Opposed.
Trustee Kelly?
In favor.
Trustee Kennedy?
Opposed.
Trustee Murphy?
Opposed.
Trustee Powell?
I'm in favor.
Trustee Saunders?
Opposed.
And myself, Trustee O'Hearn Charnota is in favor. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed. Motion. How did that work? Sorry. Again, I'm new, okay? I will get better. I told you I was going to make mistakes. Pardon me. So we have in favor 1, 2, 3, 4, opposed 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5 opposed, 4 in favor. Yeah, 5 opposed, 4 in favor. The amendment fails. Thank you. Apologize, everybody. Sorry. Okay, so now we go back to the motion on the table as originally amended. So we will take the vote. I do see a question from Trustee Saunders. Okay, no problem. Not that I haven't screwed up a few times tonight. Okay, so let's vote on that. So now we're voting on the policy with the additions that we already did. Yes, Trustee Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, under requirements where it says a history of leadership interest as exhibited through work on Student Senate and all the other organizations, who decides on that requirement and approves that requirement for the student?
Thank you, Trustee Kennedy. Over to Superintendent Del Sordo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee Kennedy, if I understand correctly, when we're looking under the requirements in terms of the student has to show a history of leadership interest as exhibited through work on the Student Senate, the Student Council, social group, the parish and liturgical programming, community youth and organizations. That is like a resume that's attached as part of their application process. So it's vetted by the principal first, then it goes to Director Klein's office, and then it goes to my office. We then package it, and then we share it with the Senate, and then the Senate will have the speeches and the elections from it.
Thank you. Trustee Kennedy, follow up, clarifying?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. What if they just had no history of any of these leadership positions and they've had a sudden change of heart and want us to somehow get involved? Will they not be a potential candidate?
To you, Superintendent Desorda, through Director Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Madam Chair. So if a student has a sudden urge to be a leader, there are different avenues that they can exercise, one of which is that they can be a representative at school council, student council. So there's multiple avenues. What this one here is really looking at are students who have had a history of leadership and governance to really support student voice, and they are part of the Senate. So it really looks at really built up interest for it. But the question about student leadership for any others, that there are multiple opportunities in schools for those leadership.
Thank you, Superintendent Desorda. Trustee Kennedy, I will move on, but if you have more questions, just so you can get back into line if you wish. Chair Duarte.
Trustee Duarte. Madam Chair, just to clarify, have we fixed the Education Act 55 subsection 2 in this policy? Just to make sure that we are correcting it before we proceed.
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Can we see that up on the screen?
It's corrected. Thank you.
That's good, Trustee Duarte? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to Student Trustee Kuzma.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to kind of additionally clarify to Trustee Kennedy's question, as with the policy where it speaks about having a significant history in leadership, is they do get an opportunity to say a speech where they do have the chance to say their previous leadership opportunities as well as that package. And this is where the student vote comes into play, as the student senate does vote for the next student trustee. So if they do have zero history and they're just kind of applying to apply, they will likely not get voted in compared to the person who is extremely versed in student senate and in school activities. So that's another sort of form of making sure that people do have the experience necessary for student trustee.
Thank you for that, Student Trustee Kuzma. Seeing no more questions, I do have an apology to make. I think Student Trustee Chua, did I miss on the last vote? I apologize. Forgive me. Thank you. Okay. Okay, seeing no more questions, I think it's time to vote on the amended policy as amended. So I will start the vote. Student Trustee Kuzma.
Opposed?
Student Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Student Trustee Bowie. Is she online? Have we seen her? Nope. Okay.
Point, yep. Yeah.
We're voting on the policy as amended. So with the changes, with the 2 bullet points put in by Trustee Duarte. That's what we're voting on right now. Yeah. Okay. Pardon? Okay, well, I'll just go. So Student Trustee Kuzma, are you still opposed? Student Trustee Chua?
In favor.
Still in favor. Okay, Trustee Saunders?
In favor.
Okay, Trustee Powell?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Kennedy?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
Going to abstain.
Abstention, and I am in favor. So the motion passes as amended. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your discernment. This policy will be brought forward to the next regular board meeting on December 20th, 2022. Yes, Director Klein.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Tomachenko for her ongoing assistance to us. It's not easy work that we do, and to have someone who is able to give us a good sense of all the possibilities and the ramifications of our decisions is we're very grateful for that. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Director Klein. Okay, so moving on, the next item on our agenda is policy II-53, exemption from instruction in the Family Life Program Fully Alive, related to the human development and sexual health expectations. Trustees, can I please have someone move that the policy committee recommends that policy II-53, exemption from instruction in the Family Life Program Fully Alive, related to the human development and sexual health expectations, be forwarded along with amendments to the December 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval. May I have a mover? Okay, Trustee Duarte.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Trustee Agnew. Okay, so through you, Superintendent Kroll, you have the floor to speak to this policy.
Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, trustees. This policy has undergone minor revisions. Just for a bit of context, this policy, some of our policies are ones that we write ourselves. Some of them are based on PPM. This is one that came directly from PPM 162, which we have added as a reference to this policy. PPM 162 required the development of boards to develop a policy and associated procedures. So we haven't made many changes since the 2019 version of this memo. We've updated a little bit of the language and we've updated the references. Updated the associated policies, procedures, and requirements, and made some minor housekeeping changes throughout. So at this point, happy to answer any questions that trustees may have.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Kroll. At this time, I'll now open up the floor if we have any questions.
I'm just wondering if Superintendent Kroll could just go through some of the changes, what the little changes were.
Sure, Trustee Saunders, yes, please try to put up your hand. I know it's hard. And through you, Madam Chair, not that I really care, but we should go through. Thank you. Over to Superintendent Kroll. Thank you.
Sure, and through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, maybe I was being too brief there. There's a couple language changes as been noted in some of the earlier policies as well, around using the words HCDSB. We've changed the language, updated the language pupils to students. And at the bottom of the policy, the only kind of major change was the removal of the requirement to develop an administrative procedure, because we've undertaken that work. That procedure has been developed, so it's no longer needed by the policy.
Thank you. Trustee Saunders, do you have any clarification follow-up? No, you're good. Okay, perfect. Trustee Carabella, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on the page 3, the first bullet, it says inform parents, guardians that they can choose to have their child or children exempted from instruction related to human development and sexual health expectations in both the Ontario curriculum, physical and health education document, as well as the Fully Alive Catholic Family Life Program, by completing and returning an exemption form for each child. So this is meant for our children, our students in elementary grade 1 to grade 8. So as I read this right now, our students have, or teachers are having the opportunity to teach. They can choose between the Fully Alive Catholic Family Life Program or the Ontario curriculum, like the ministry program, physical and health education document. And
thank you, Trustee Carabella. Superintendent Kroll for clarification.
Sure, certainly, and through you, Madam Chair. By teaching the Fully Alive, they're covering the majority of the third of health and phys ed expectations, but they're being taught through a Catholic lens. So that's where the Fully Alive program that was developed by the bishops gives us the Catholic context to teach those health and phys ed expectations, specifically in Strand D, that this policy is referring to. So we would say there's an expectation, we would say there's an expectation in our board that our staff are teaching the Fully Alive program. They're not just teaching the Ontario curriculum, they're teaching it through the Fully Alive program.
Thank you. Trustee Carabella, clarification or follow-up?
well, thank you for that, because I would expect that as well. I think most parents do. So, but a teacher could choose, no? And would the principal have to know, or?
Through you, Madam Chair, working for a Catholic school board, there's an expectation that they're teaching the Catholic curriculum developed by Catholic bishops.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on, student trustee Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a comment to make. Is there any way we can get a copy of what exactly is outlined for the Fully Alive Catholic Family Life Program? Because I do have concerns of what it is actually cutting out. Is it cutting out vital information such as consent and that sort of thing, or?
don't know if I could give you a fully alive description of the fully alive curriculum tonight, but I can assure you that it has been vetted. It has been, we have had some of our own board educators working on developing the fully alive program. It's more about the context in which we put those curriculum expectations. It's more that they understand that. So I would say that we're not removing things that would put any students at risk. It's just more that we're making sure that they're in line with our board and our sort of church's mission, vision, and values, if that makes sense. Our curriculum is continuing to undergo revisions as well. So you may or may not be aware, over the last few years have been revisions that have gone all the way from grade 1 through grade 8. We're now looking to make revisions to the high school curriculum as well as additions to the kindergarten curriculum.
Thank you. Student trustee Chua, do you have a follow-up clarification? Okay, perfect. Okay, I don't see any new hands up as far as questions are concerned. I'd like to move to a vote. I will go slow as we're missing a trustee. So right now we're going to vote on policy II-53 as presented by Superintendent Crowell. So trustee Saunders, how do you vote? Trustee Powell?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly?
In favor.
Trustee Kennedy?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Student trustee Chua?
In favor.
Student trustee Kuzma?
In favor.
Student trustee Bowie, is she online? No. Okay, and I vote in favor. This motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the policy will be brought forward to the next regular board meeting on December 20th, 2022. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is item 6.5, policy IV-07, alternative arrangements for school facilities. Trustees, can I have someone to please move policy IV-07?
What?
Oh, I missed a whole sentence. 1 second, trustee Duarte. That the policy committee recommends that policy IV-07, alternative arrangements for school facilities, be forwarded along with amendments to the December 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval. May I have a mover? Duarte. May I have a seconder?
Agnew.
Thank you. Superintendent Loss, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Staff is requesting to rescind policy 407, alternative arrangements for school facilities. On October 12, 2018, by Ontario Regulation 438-18, the provincial government amended the Education Act, and as such, after consulting with Brad Teichman from Overland LLP, staff is recommending rescinding this policy. Madam Chair, Mr. Teichman is also attending this meeting through Teams and can also address any questions trustees may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Lofts. I do see trustee Carabella. You have your hand up? No, she doesn't have her hand up. No. Okay, perfect. Trustee Saunders, you have the floor.
Through you, Chair, why are we rescinding this? What are the implications, or what's the issues around this?
You, Madam Chair?
Yes, please, Superintendent Lofts, feel free.
I can give an explanation, but I think Mr. Teichman might give a more thorough explanation. Brad, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. May I proceed?
Thank you for being here as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Madam Chair, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Crystal.
Okay, great. Before I start, I'm not sure, because this is a new board, if all members are familiar with what education development charges are. So I'm going to proceed on the assumption that the members of the board are familiar with it. But just briefly, at a very high level, education development charges are a charge that school boards are entitled to impose every time a building permit is issued for residential or non-residential construction, and the money that's collected, that the board is able to collect, is used to purchase school sites. And the money can also be used to prepare school sites for the construction of schools. Education development charges cannot be used for the cost of construction, only to purchase sites and to prepare the sites for construction. Okay, so this policy, the alternative arrangements for school facilities policy, it was previously required under the legislation, which governs education development charges, which I'll refer to as EDCs. The legislation was changed and this policy is no longer required. What the policy required was that school boards, it required school boards to explore opportunities for alternative arrangements that could provide pupil accommodation. And so it was alternative arrangements rather than the conventional approach of buying land and building a school on it. So some of these alternative arrangements might have been a school board leasing space within a building, or leasing land and building a school on leased land in order to avoid the capital cost of acquiring the site. It would also include, those arrangements would have included, let's say, joint use facilities with municipalities, as well as with private sector interests. So that might have included building a school within a larger residential development. I'm sure members of the board have heard of examples. These are in Toronto, where a condominium development, 25-story development, where 2 or 3 floors are provided, and the Toronto District School Board bought space within the building to provide pupil accommodation or a school. So those are the types of arrangements that this policy, this former policy or requirement for the policy, required this board to consider whenever the board was ready to pass a new education development charge bylaw, and that would happen every 5 years. But as I said at the beginning, the legislation has now eliminated the need for this policy, and that's why staff are recommending that the policy be eliminated. It's still open to the board without the policy to consider alternative arrangements. It's just not a mandatory requirement any longer. So that's the background to the policy, as well as the staff recommendation that the policy be rescinded. I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Nope,
Thank you.
that's good.
Thank you. Saunders. Okay, perfect. Okay, seeing no questions, I think I will call the vote. So we're voting on. Okay, so let's start with the vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Duarte.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Kelly. Trustee Kelly,
In favor, sorry, technical difficulties.
Trustee Kennedy.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Thank you. I am in favor. Trustee Powell.
In favor.
Trustee Saunders.
In favor.
Student Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Student Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
And Student Trustee Bowie, I don't see her on here. Okay, so motion passes. The policy will be brought forward to the next regular board meeting on December 20th, 2022. Thank you, everybody. Moving on. We are now on item 6.6, policy IV08, school sites and operating budgets. Trustees, can I have someone please move that the policy committee recommends that policy IV08, school sites and operating budgets, be forwarded along with amendments to the December 20th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval. May I have a mover? Trustee Duarte? May I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Trustee Powell, thank you very much. Superintendent Lofts, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, staff is requesting to rescind policy 408, school sites and operating budget. Similar to the previous item 6.5, staff is recommending to rescind this policy. Again, I believe Brad is still on the call and is available to answer any questions, Madam Chair, as am I.
Thank you, Superintendent Lofts. Fellow trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Saunders, you have the floor.
Yeah, through you. Is it the same reason as the last one? It's just legislation doesn't require this anymore? Through you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Superintendent Lofts.
That is correct, Trustee Saunders.
Follow up, Trustee Saunders?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Looking around, no more questions. Okay, I think we will now take it to a recorded vote. Trustee Saunders.
In favor.
Trustee Duarte.
In favor.
Trustee Kelly.
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Kennedy.
In favor.
Trustee Powell.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
I am in favor as well. Student Trustee Bowie. No, I don't see her here. Student Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Favor, and Student Trustee Kuzma.
In favor.
Thank you. The policy will be brought forward to the next regular board meeting on December 20th, 2022. Moving on, item 7, discussion items. There are no discussion items on tonight's agenda. So we'll move on to item 8, information items. Items provided as information. Item 8.4 is upcoming agenda items for the January 10th, 2022 Policy Committee meeting. Item number 9, miscellaneous information. There is no miscellaneous information. Correspondence, we did not have any correspondence submitted. Item number 11, which is in camera, there is nothing to discuss and an in-camera session. And item 12, we motion to excuse an absent committee member. I think Student Trustee Bowie hasn't been on, so may I have a mover to excuse Student Trustee Bowie? Mover, Trustee Carabella. Seconder?
Trustee Duarte.
Trustee Duarte, Trustee, silly wabbit. Trustee Duarte. Okay, so Student Trustee Bowie will be excused. All in favor? Any opposed? Nope, none opposed. Perfect. Item number 13, adjournment closing prayer. May I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a mover?
Right here.
Trustee Saunders was quick on that one. Okay, may I have a seconder? Trustee Powell? All in favor? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I now ask Trustee Agnew to lead us in our closing prayer this evening.
Thank you very much, and through you, Madam Chair. In the spirit of Christmas time, as we're all preparing, I just wanted to have a Christmas prayer. It's called a Christmas prayer for hope. So if you'll join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Jesus, the light of the world, as we prepare to celebrate your birth, may we begin to see the world in the light of understanding you give us. As you chose the lowly, the outcasts, and the poor to receive the greatest news the world had ever known, so may we worship you in meekness of heart. May we also remember our brothers and sisters less fortunate than ourselves in this season of giving. Amen. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you very much, Trustee Agnew. So everyone have a good evening. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. Thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Meeting's adjourned.